Devil May Cry 5. What can you say about the game that hasn't already been said? What can you say about the series? This video is more about my personal journey with the series and the lead up to Devil May Cry 5, rather than an actual in-depth analysis of the game.
Perfect timing.
The first Devil May Cry was a game I always defined as the evolution of 3D games that came before it. Early in the PS2's life cycle, it was the game that we'd been waiting for in many ways. To me, it always reminded me of a fast-paced Resident Evil game. Dante, to us, was a cool dude from Japan who satiated our need for dual pistol wielding in a video game. Our goal while playing the original trilogy was to beat the game by any means possible. Combos and style ranks were secondary to us. This isn't the attitude the games are going for, of course, but we were so used to this concept in other games that it just kind of bled over. You mean the goal isn't to win, but to look as cool as possible? We clearly didn't learn this lesson, as we had resorted to using ebony and ivory almost exclusively, especially when the going got tough. A strategy we referred to as Hotel Motel. This had nothing to do with the song. It was more about the cadence of the pistols as they fired in tandem. But even then, all we wanted was more Dante. That was enough to sell us on Devil May Cry 2. We knew the game was lame. We frankly didn't really play it all that much, but fortunately Devil May Cry 3 came along and gave us exactly what we'd been waiting for, the origin story. After the trilogy, Devil May Cry 4 seemed like the series' first revival, probably because it came out for PS3 and Xbox 360. For various reasons, I didn't sink my teeth into that game like I had the previous three. At the time, I actually didn't own the latest consoles and hadn't built my rig yet. Eventually, I went back to beat the game, but it didn't sell me as hard as the earlier titles. I can't really put my finger on why. Then the series, by my estimation, went into hibernation. Ninja Theory's DMC came along, and I totally skipped it due to lack of interest. They tried to sell the game on the concept of breaking away from the Japanese aesthetic and origins, which is what drove us to the game in the first place. I remember thinking that at this point, Capcom was done with the franchise and the only thing we'd get from now on was going to be the remake series. From what I hear, it wasn't exactly a bad game, and it's one of those I've always meant to go back and sort of retry or at least play through it just to say I did, but I'm in no rush. All of a sudden, Devil May Cry 5 was announced out of thin air. It was one of those rare times I was watching the E3 stream with super best friends play, and I got to see their reaction in real time. Suddenly my hype was completely engaged again, like I hadn't skipped a beat. Capcom's trailer had me totally gripped, and that song, everything I did, I had it on. Maybe it was because I thought the franchise was dead, and suddenly it was resurrected and looked better than ever. I surprised myself because it's not like I was a zealot for the series up to that point. I knew that if I was going to play Devil May Cry 5, I would need to get back into character action games. The last one I played was Metal Gear Rising, a game I enjoyed very, very much, and I consider it a more faithful Metal Gear sequel in regard to the story. I started with another game I had missed due to my lack of consoles, Bayonetta. I had heard great things over and over again, and this game just didn't click like I was expecting it would. I really liked the character design, voice acting, mechanics. I just didn't get to the point where my skills translated to a good flow of action. And this probably could have been fixed by putting some more time into the game. I just couldn't get it going. Couldn't get motivated.
If I needed a biographer, you wouldn't be my first choice.
While waiting for Devil May Cry to come out, I actually ended up missing most of the betas and demos. I suppose this didn't deter me because I ended up pre-ordering the game anyway. Usually if it's at all possible to play a game before its official release, I'll take it. So I suppose I just had a good feeling about this one. So, the game comes out, and I start a new game almost immediately. I didn't realize how much I was missing this type of gameplay and combat in my life and my gaming activities. I realized I had missed the sounds of the game. Literally, the menu in which you select something. It hadn't changed in fucking 20 years. This is a strange concept, but it's one of those intangible feelings, like an old friend you haven't seen in a long time. I had a similar feeling during Doom in 2016 and when Deus Ex Human Revolution came out. We've come a long way since the fast-paced Resident Evil days, but there are a lot of tiny details that they've kept consistent. You cycle through 3 playable characters as you progress through the game, and at first it's tough to switch between characters because of the adjustment period to acclimate to their moveset. Newcomer V is a character I wasn't entirely sure about at first, but he totally won me over.
What? Does that mean you're going too? I have a duty to see this through. Well, that's all you had to say, Mr. Poetry.
His type of gameplay is really unique and entirely different from the other 2 playable characters. I can't name another character or another game that controls like V does. I am by no means an expert on character action games, but I'd be hard-pressed to find a character that controls like V. As the game progresses and you get practice against the different enemy types, switching becomes a lot easier. You have these huge lists of options for every character, and it can seem overwhelming. There are times during my first playthrough I was sitting on, 100,000 red orbs, and I had no idea what to spend them on. Eventually, you must start spending money. Doesn't matter what you buy. I learned that once a move is unlocked, you have another option for your character. By the second playthrough, you realize what you use more often and you can concentrate on upgrading those skills, but once you're comfortable with those moves, you can add another move you didn't think you'd need. And hey, look at that. Now it's in your go-to combo. So what I love about this game is that when you walk up to an enemy, you have at least a dozen different ways you can start attacking. All of these are accommodating to the different playstyles. And sometimes you have to push yourself, try something new. But I never felt the obligation to go on the internet and find an optimal combo list. Normally you have to go find a bunch of combos and master them and spend a bunch of time in practice mode. But this game, no, you just jump right in and everything feels good. And it feels good to explore those combos on your own. And yeah, sometimes they'll end up being what somebody else does, but it's still too much fun to try and get those stylish rankings on your own. The only pressure to succeed is what you put on yourself. You can play through the game like we used to, back in the day. A to B, just finish. Just beat everyone, ugliest way possible. But the real reward is to go through the game and look as cool as possible while you're doing. That's what sets this game apart. This game finds the perfect balance between winning and challenge. There really isn't an annoying boss or insurmountable enemy type, no perceivable difficulty spikes as far as I could tell. Some enemies are of course more difficult than others, but nothing that distracts from the flow of the game's challenge. In fact, some bosses are easier to take down with particular character. A fact they use later in the game during the classic, "This is a Capcom game, replay all the bosses right in a row" segment.
What? No chit-chat or monologue? Just getting right to the point, huh?
Going back through the game to find all these tiny little bitty secrets doesn't feel like a slog either. The levels are well crafted and you get a chance to easily dispatch old enemies with new skills. I purposely let this game sit for a while after I beat it, just to see what it would feel like after a couple months of reflection. I'm pleased to say that you pick it up right away, all the moves come back, and you realize why you had so much fun in the first place. I started this video saying I wasn't going to review this game, and that it was more about my personal journey with the series. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just how good it is. Capcom says they've successfully reinvigorated the brand. That may be true from a financial standpoint, but I think it's true from a personal standpoint as well. I think it's the best Devil May Cry game ever made, which is no small task. I can see myself playing through it again out of the blue someday just for fun, which is high praise for the way I treat games I've already beaten. If you gave me a limited time frame and asked me to play a character action game, or frankly even any action game, Devil May Cry 5 is what I'd spend my time on. Play Devil May Cry 5 at least once, even if you aren't into these types of games. You won't regret it, and the game will welcome you with open arms.